math, numbers,
sine wave,
coordinates.
radius,
Let's factor. Let's factor more.
polynomials,
Numerator.
equations.
Hello mathematicians, and welcome to Miss V's math class. Today I'm going to go through a topic that's extremely important, not just for algebra, but also for your future mathematical career, especially entering into high school, and that is rate of change. And it is continued on in 8th, 9th, all the way up into calculus. So it's a super important topic. You're going to see it in a lot of different forms, lots of different kinds of questions about rate of change or slope. So let's get to it. The way that slope or rate of change is normally introduced is by the phrase rise over run. The one that you've probably seen that most teachers start off with is slope of a line on a graph. So we're going to use that rise over run formula. We need to start by finding 2 points. Now you can use any two coordinates that you want. It really doesn't matter. You should get the same answer no matter where you do it at on this graph. So between those 2 points, this rises. It goes from 4 to 8. So my rise, it has gone up 4. And since it's gone up, I'm leaving that 4 positive. If the line was instead going down, then this would be a negative slope. So we read graphs like we read English from left to right. So as I look from left to right, this one's going up, so I know it's going to be a positive slope. Okay, so it rises 4, and then the run, or the change in horizontal distance, it goes from 0 to 2, so that's a change of 2. And to simplify this fraction, 4 divided by 2 is 2, so that's my slope. While we're looking at graphs, we may as well also talk about special cases. A horizontal line, this is like a flat line, some may call it. You can tell between any 2 points on that line, the rise is 0. So if you're doing rise over run, it'll be 0 over whatever, doesn't matter, that's equal to 0. Now this one, the rise can be anything, but the run is 0. Now think about if you have 0 on the bottom of a fraction in the denominator, that is not a real number. So we say that the slope is undefined. It does not exist. And we use the word undefined to represent that. So those are your special cases. So think about for a second what it is you're actually doing when you find the rise. The rise is the change in y values from one point to the next. The way that we denote change in math is the Greek symbol delta. It's a little triangle. So we could rewrite this formula as change in y divided by run is change in x. If you have 2 points, let's call this one point 1. I could call this x1, y1, and my second point, I can call it x2, y2. Okay, so the way that I found the rise, the change in y, is I found the difference between y2 and y1. I subtracted. So another way to rewrite this formula is y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. And that's the exact formula that we're going to be using for the next couple examples here. So in this type of problem, you're just given the points. They're not on a graph. They're just listed. So I'm going to label my points x1 and y1, x2, y2. Remember that every point is x comma y, so that should help you. And then I'm going to just go ahead and plug those numbers in. So my y2 is 0 minus y1 is negative 3. Be careful with your negative there. And then on the denominator, x2 is 18 minus x1 is 0. And I can simplify that. 0 minus negative 3 is the same as 0 plus 3, which is 3. 18 minus 0 is 18. And I can simplify that fraction into 1 over 6. Okay, one more example here. Again, x1, y1, x2, y2. And on the numerator, I'm going to put my y's. So y2 minus y1, the denominator 0 minus negative 3. So this is very similar to the top one, except that here the x and y values are changed. So we're going to see what happens in this situation is you get the reciprocal. So be very careful. Make sure that your y values are on the top. That's a very common mistake, is that kids tend to put the x's on top instead of the y's.
Like to color? Check out my slope coloring sheet and more fun activities on my Teachers Pay Teachers account at teacherspayteachers.com/store/miss-vs-math-class. Find the link in the video description.
Let's talk about a table. So a couple things you might notice here. This has t and d of t, so this is function notation. Think about d of t, that function notation means this is depending on t. So this is your dependent, your y. This is your x, your independent. And as a hint, whenever you see t in a problem, it's usually talking about time, and time is always the independent variable because time never depends on anything. Other things depend on time. All right, so we're asked for the rate of change, in other words, the slope. And I can pick whatever I want, whatever points. Let's just pick this one. I'm going to call this my x1 and my y1. This will be my x2 and my y2. And I can do this the exact same way as those last couple problems. y2 minus y1, 8 minus 3, divided by x2 minus x1, 3 minus 1. 8 minus 3 is 5, 3 minus 1 is 2. So my slope rate of change there is 5/2. Another example, kind of a real world problem here. Again, we're in function notation. This days is time, so this is going to be your independent. This is your dependent. Again, I'm going to look at change in y over change in x. But on a table, you can also, there's kind of a little shortcut that I like to do. I'm looking from one to the next. I can see that this has increased by 2. Over on this side, the x's have increased by 1. So my change in y is 2, my change in x is 1, 2 over 1 is 2. So that's kind of a nice little shortcut with the tables. It's a little bit easier than just seeing the points in a list. I hope you guys learned something today from this video. Please leave a message for me in the comments section. And make sure to check out my Teachers Pay Teachers account where there are all kinds of practice problems, worksheets, projects.